Okay, hang on. Press and record. All right,
I'm a
let's
little
do
rusty.
this.
I'm a little rusty. Be gentle.
Leroy!
Be gentle.
Jay, what if I just take it anyways?
Oh, that's not nice.
Troops, I saw a bear here. Today, we'll be taking a look at another suggestion series on mountain and subterranean warfare in Foxhole. What will I be covering with this suggestion series? Well, first we'll take a look at a note the devs had about biomes and implementing new ones into Foxhole. I'll discuss tunnels and the gameplay features I'd like to see created for it. The philosophy behind adding tunnels and tunnel networks into the game. No, not tunnels like this one. The gameplay features for mountains I think could be implemented, and the philosophy behind burying the mountains that we already have in-game, as well as a bonus section on sewers and glaciers, and then my final thoughts. So this is a very early clip from the very first dev stream, and right from then, we get our answer on new biomes.
Yeah.
I have Star Fox asks a question that's really easy to answer.
Yeah.
Will we see more exotic areas, deserts, canyons, jungles, etc.? Right now, and kind of going forward for the at least first initial release of Foxhole, probably we won't see anything like that. We're focusing on a cold, kind of like harsh atmosphere. Like for the art team, for instance, there's only a couple of us. It would take us a lot to do it. Suddenly switch into a desert, for instance. Whereas, you know what I mean? Whereas we can work inside of a specific biome a lot easier, and it makes us a lot easier. Like I can make maps a lot faster. If we suddenly did a desert, that might be like a couple months instead of a couple weeks.
Exactly true. And like if you look at a game like Skyrim, right? Like they built this whole game out, and it's all basically this kind of like
Northern European Arctic.
Yeah, right. So and like it really works well. It's not like they just tried to like take all these different types of like environments and just try like shove it all into one game just for the sake of it, right? So I think in some cases actually.
So, current tunnel features that are already present in Foxhole. Well, frankly, very few exist in the game. A handful of passageways and archways, some of which you can find in northern regions, and a couple of tunnel and mine locations, but these are almost exclusively for lore, like the one in Westgate. Some proposed tunnel features would be, well, simply more tunnels across the map. There are a few here and there, and some of them do act as shortcuts, but there just really aren't enough. I was even surprised a few months ago when I happened upon that archway that I showed you in the snow, just by accident. I don't know how many people even know it's there. More mines, more passageways, caverns, etc. Especially with the new small gauge railways, the devs could definitely set up like an old mining town or even a completely underground town location somewhere. These would provide infantry with flanking routes, more on that in a bit. An addition could also be the ability to dig deep tunnels and conduct undermining operations. These would take a long time. Here's a still from the movie Beneath Hill 60 if you ever want some inspiration for this. Great movie, by the way. It would take a lot of material, it would be relatively safe, and it would act as a way to crack defenses early in the war. Late war, you've got tanks and artillery that will shred defenses, no problem. But early in the war, the only thing we really have at the start is mammon rushes. The philosophy behind tunnel gameplay is pretty straightforward. It provides a variety of environments without adding too many assets for the devs to have to create. It adds early war variety, though you can do this late war. It'd probably be most effective in the early war when things are a little bit more static. New tactics to take on defenses, like I said, undermining. This is a medieval example, but if you're unfamiliar with this strategy, this is basically how it goes. You dig underneath enemy defenses. In a medieval setting, you would set fire to the supports and collapse the structure from below. In a more modern setting, you just plant a bunch of explosives. New gear, uniforms, and specializations for troops. Plenty of mining gear and military mining gear to go around, and it looks really cool. Combat builders. Tunnel and counter-tunneling, because yes, even in the First World War, tunnels did bump into each other and there would be very close quarters fighting. and, importantly, infantry-centric combat zones. Armor dominates the late war, but tunnels will be dominated by infantry. And to borrow a little bit of inspiration from Battlefield 1 yet again, if you're talking close quarters, I think a melee weapons update is needed to suit it. Moving on to the opposite side of the spectrum, mountains. What are the current mountain features in Foxhole? Well, there's some mountains and high points of interest, but often they're just glorified walls or barriers for balance reasons, and players don't really interact with these types of environments. So some proposed mountain features are hills and hilltop towns, more elevation variance in the terrain. Here's, once again, an extreme example from the Italian front and the Dolomites during World War I. You can see even on these razor-sharp peaks, they were still building fortifications and shelters to conduct warfare. Fortified, compact, mountaintop settlements like this, I could see being a really interesting combat zone for Foxhole. Building would be restricted but not impossible, and combat could see you falling to your death. Mountain passageways, footpaths that lead up through and over mountains, narrows with scaling ladders, vines that are only passable for infantry or light equipment. Because yes, in World War I they were bringing pretty heavy guns, relatively speaking, to mountaintops to blast each other with. The philosophy behind mountain gameplay is honestly almost identical to tunnels. Provides a variety of environments without adding too many assets, new routes of attack, potential to bypass main roads and main defense lines, new roles and unit types for players to engage with, new uniforms, gears, and specialization. I didn't mean to add a picture with skis in it, but screw it, why not? And of course, mountains will be infantry-centric combat zones, away from where the armor dominates in the lowlands. Here's a quick mock-up of mountain passes. So here we have Callahan's Passage, famous or infamous, depending on which side you're on, for its mountains. And here's a mock-up that I drew of Callahan's Passage, but with some mountaintop passageways. Now I did add a few more mountains and rocks to create a little bit more funneling, but I feel that's only fair given that we're opening up a couple of passageways here. A little bit of a bonus is sewers and glaciers. Sewer systems are basically tunnels, but for the urban setting. They'd allow you to travel from house to house or safe house to certain points around town, and maybe getting out of a safe house would be a lot easier if you didn't have to funnel out the windows and 2 doors in each of the safe houses. On the other hand, glaciers, ice caverns. Again, they played a very large role on the Italian front during World War I. Though, because they'll be made of ice, you'd either have to manually tunnel through them, or they'd already just be created by the devs on the map. But there is the possibility to try and make it so certain sections could be collapsed, much like bridges in the game, or cause avalanches. And then walls and fortifications basically means a rework for the bulwark, to make it so you could travel through more of it, on top of it, below it, that kind of thing. I didn't want to forget about the southern region either. Some final thoughts. Current biomes can still foster new environments to fight in. Mountain and underground warfare have been a staple for centuries. Close-quarter locations can keep infantry relevant into the late war. The assets are arguably already in-game and can be repurposed. Oh, and World War I Italian front images go hard. So, thanks again for hearing out this suggestion series. What do you guys think of my ideas? Do you think there's a different way to implement tunnel and mountaintop warfare? And where do you think a mountain pass or a cave could be placed in-game? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. Bear, out.
You don't want to fist fight me? Come on, man. Come on. It's been like... Oh!
Damn
it! Come on!
Gotcha.